Welcome, everyone. Grab a seat. Today, we're diving into an explainer on one of the most fundamental, yet kind of hilarious, everyday rituals of human existence. Picture this, right? You wake up, you stretch, and the very first thing you do is reach for a pair of pants. We do it every single morning, literally billions of us. We're so deeply committed to this routine that society has built an entire legal system around the simple concept of, please put something on. I mean, we literally arrest people for being too naked. But if you take a step back and look at this biologically, it's a fundamentally absurd behavior. Today, we're going to trace humanity's evolutionary timeline to figure out exactly how, and more importantly, why we are the only species on Earth that actually does this.
Seriously, think about it for a second. Look at the rest of the animal kingdom. Dogs, they don't wear clothes. Wolves don't wear clothes. Even an elephant, which, let's be honest, is objectively smarter than a lot of people we went to high school with, has never once looked at a cloudy sky and thought, you know what, I better bring a jacket. Yet here we are, standing right in the middle of all this incredible biodiversity, completely bald, and deciding to artificially cover ourselves up. So it really sets up the central evolutionary mystery of today's lecture. Why in the world did we start getting dressed?
To answer that, we've got to start with what biologists call the naked ape problem. Just look at gorillas, chimpanzees, lions, bears. Across wildly different extreme climates, they're all walking around in these permanent thick fur coats. And then there's us, just smooth, exposed, and honestly, a little patchy. Scientists believed this massive loss of body hair happened because of thermoregulation. As our ancestors moved out from dense, shaded forests onto the open African savannah, they started running really long distances to hunt. And if you're covered in a thick layer of fur while sprinting after prey under a blazing sun, you are going to overheat, collapse, and, well, die hungry. So evolution stepped in and stripped away our fur coat. Okay, let's dive into this. Because replacing that fur, we developed somewhere between 2 and 4 million sweat glands. 2 to 4 million. That is an absolutely insane number. It literally makes humans world-class, elite sweating machines. We can outsweat almost any other animal on the planet. Now, this physiological adaptation, fantastic when you're running on a hot savanna, but it is a massive, life-threatening liability when it's 40 below zero, and you're just trying to survive a brutal glacial winter in Central Asia. We lost our natural protection, leaving our species highly, highly vulnerable to the cold. So here is our course syllabus for today's explainer. We're going to take a structured, chronological journey through the biology, the climate, and the prehistoric engineering that got us here. We'll start with the genetic lice clock, then look at early protection and social signaling, glacial survival, the invention of bone needles, and finally, the shift to woven textiles. Let's jump right into Chapter 1, the lice clock, and the genetic timeline of getting dressed. Now, what's really interesting about this is that the timeline of when we started wearing clothes wasn't recorded in stone or some fossilized bone. No, it was accidentally recorded by a universally hated parasite. I promise you, this is one of the most bizarre, slightly gross, but undeniably fascinating pieces of genetic detective work you'll ever hear. Humans have two main types of lice. You've got head lice, which live strictly in the hair on our scalps, and then you have body lice. Now, body lice cannot survive on bare human skin. They survive specifically in the seams, folds, and warmth of fabric. They are genetically distinct from head lice, but they actually evolved from them. What this means is the exact evolutionary moment that body lice split from head lice is the exact moment humans started wearing clothes consistently enough to create a brand new ecological niche for a bug. Scientists ran the numbers, using this parasite evolution to date the first use of garments, and found the divergence happened somewhere between 83,000 and 170,000 years ago. Basically, the lice knew we were getting dressed before we did. If we map this out chronologically, we run into a major historical plot twist. Check out this timeline. Body lice diverge up to 170,000 years ago, giving us our very first clothes. But modern humans didn't start their major migration out of Africa into significantly colder climates until about 70,000 years ago. Do you see the huge gap there? Clothes are appearing tens of thousands of years before we actually went anywhere cold. This proves without a doubt that keeping warm was absolutely not the original driver for getting dressed. And that brings us to our second section, protection and social signaling, the true birth of prehistoric fashion. So, the crucial point is, if it wasn't for the cold, why on earth were we wrapping ourselves in animal hides? Well, the first theory is just practical physical protection. If you're trekking through tall grass, thorny scrubland, or rocky terrain, tossing on a crude, unglamorous hide wrap acts as a physical barrier against the blistering sun, biting insects, and sharp thorns. It prevents nasty cuts and deadly infections. But beyond just physical protection, humans are profoundly social, hierarchy-obsessed animals. Long before we had actual clothes, around 200,000 years ago, our ancestors were already using ancient pigments like ochre to paint and decorate their bodies. The impulse to visually signal your tribal identity, your status, and your power to the rest of the group completely predates clothing. The cognitive leap from painting your skin with ochre to draping a specific, powerful animal hide over your shoulder really isn't a big one. Suddenly, you're not just protected from thorns, you are broadcasting to everyone that you are the elite hunter who took down that leopard. And just like that, prehistoric fashion is born. Moving on to Section 3, Glacial Survival and Neanderthals, and how we adapted to the Ice Age. You see, fashion very quickly became a matter of absolute life and death, because between 120,000 and 70,000 years ago, the Earth went through a series of brutal, highly volatile glacial cycles. Temperatures plunged, global ice sheets expanded, the human population crashed so incredibly hard that we came astonishingly close to total extinction. In this hostile new world, extreme environmental pressures meant clothing transitioned from being a cool social signal into a mandatory survival technology. And hey, we were the only human species dealing with this. Neanderthals were also making clothes well before they ever encountered us. They actually had specific stone tools designed to scrape and prepare heavy hides. They really relied on their own physiological adaptations to the cold, combined with those thick, scraped leather wraps. But early Homo sapiens? We took a totally different route. We leaned entirely into technological adaptation. We developed complex, fitted, layered clothing systems that physically sealed off our extremities. It really begs the question, is clothing just an inevitable invention for any smart, cold bipedal primate trying not to freeze? That leads right into topic 4, bone needles and tailoring, a literal prehistoric engineering revolution. The real key to Homo sapiens' success against the extreme cold was the invention of tailoring.
For a long, long time, early clothing was literally just a skin draped over the shoulders, maybe tied with a bit of cord. Let's be honest, it functioned basically like a prehistoric bin bag, but around 50,000 years ago, there's this massive technological leap that changes the entire course of human history. Our ancestors invented the bone needle. The oldest conferred needle with a proper eye was found in the Denisova cave in Siberia, dating back 50,000 years. And it required some absolutely brilliant engineering steps to make. First, you have to source a fragile, hollow bird bone. Then you polish it down to an extreme fineness. And then, this is the hardest part, you have to bore a clean, microscopic eye hole through the top without splitting the bone, just so you can thread it with animal sinew. And this brilliantly illustrates a massive cognitive revolution. What we are looking at there isn't just a brute force survival instinct. That is pure design thinking. Someone actually imagined a tool that did not exist just to solve a massive environmental problem. This tiny little needle allowed early humans to transition away from simple hide draping to intricate, deliberate stitching. They were creating fitted, tailored garments with tight seams that perfectly sealed body heat inside. Listen, you can live without cave paintings, but in the depths of a harsh Siberian winter, without perfectly sealed, tailored clothing, you will freeze to death in a matter of hours. This single piece of engineering drastically changed early human cold weather survival rates. Let's move to and see how this builds in Phase 5, woven textiles, and the massive shift from heavy hides to specialized wardrobes. As human culture grew more and more complex, there was this massive technical shift, away from using heavy animal skins to cultivating and weaving complex plant fibers. When you compare the two side by side, you instantly see why textiles changed the world. Now, animal hides are highly warm and wonderfully water resistant, but they are incredibly heavy, stiff, really hard to clean, and logistically difficult to source because, you have to actually hunt and kill something to get one. On the other hand, woven plant fibers, like early linen spun from flax, are lightweight, versatile, and can be easily layered for adjustable insulation. Crucially, they can be spun from agricultural plants. This transition eventually allowed humans to move from simply owning one single heavy survival hide to possessing a specialized, versatile wardrobe meant for different seasons and specific tasks. And we know for a fact that aesthetics still matter deeply, even as this survival tool advanced. In a cave in the Republic of Georgia, archaeologists found twisted plant fibers dating all the way back 30,000 years. The incredible part about this, they were already intentionally dyed in multiple colors. Someone tens of thousands of years ago looked at a perfectly functional piece of woven fabric and decided, you know what, this needs to be pink. Not because pink is magically warmer, but because early clothing patterns and colors carry deep tribal status and aesthetic meaning. Which brings us to the core truth of human clothing. It functions as a deeply embedded, nonverbal language. Literally, no other animal does this. We use specific garments to broadcast exactly who we are to the rest of the world. Clothing allowed early humans to instantly signal their tribal belonging, establish elite status within the group, indicate periods of mourning or celebration, serve as a warning of danger, and even separate sacred roles from ordinary everyday life, all without speaking a single word.
It acted as a silent proxy for social rank in early tribes and replaced social ambiguity with a very clear, immediate visual hierarchy. Which leaves us right here, right now. The remarkable thing isn't just that we started wearing clothes, it's that the fundamental reason why we do it really hasn't changed at all. Every single one of you watching made a conscious or unconscious choice this morning about what to put on your body. You chose a specific style, a brand, a color. You were doing the exact same thing our ancestor was doing 170,000 years ago when they draped an ochre-stained hide over their shoulder. You are speaking the oldest human language. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought. What conscious or unconscious choices are you making today with what you wear, and what modern tribe are you signaling you belong to? Class dismissed, and I'll see you in the next explainer.